She was called the Mighty Hood. At over 860 feet long, the HMS Hood was the largest, fastest, and most powerful warship in the Royal Navy when she launched in 1918. Sleek, armed with 15-inch guns, and capable of 30 knots, she was more than just a battlecruiser, she was a symbol. For Britain, Hood represented power, stability, and empire. She toured the world's oceans as a floating embassy of steel. Crowds gathered in every port she visited. Politicians pointed to her. Newspapers praised her. To the British public, she was invincible. But beneath the pride lay a flaw: her armor. Hood was designed in World War I, before aircraft and long-range naval guns changed how battles were fought. Her deck armor, especially over the magazines, was dangerously thin by 1941 standards. She had received upgrades, but not enough. And now, the world was at war again. In May of 1941, a new threat emerged from Germany. The Bismarck, a powerful battleship equipped with 15-inch guns and state-of-the-art fire control. When British intelligence learned Bismarck had slipped into the North Atlantic, there was only one ship fast enough and famous enough to stop her: the Hood. And so, on May 22, Hood set out with the brand-new battleship Prince of Wales, hunting Bismarck through the icy waters of the Denmark Strait. What happened next would shock the world. May 24, 1941. Just before 6 a.m., lookouts aboard HMS Hood spotted two ships emerging from the fog, the Bismarck and her escort, the heavy cruiser Prince Eugen. The Hood, alongside HMS Prince of Wales, turned to intercept. The two British ships opened fire first. Shells from Hood's massive guns arced across the sky, aiming not for Bismarck, but for Prince Eugen, mistaken in the early light. The Germans returned fire immediately. Bismarck's gunners were fast, disciplined, and deadly accurate. In just 5 minutes, Hood had taken several near misses. In the cold waters of the Denmark Strait, nothing remained but smoke, oil, and twisted metal. The battle had ended almost as soon as it had begun. HMS Hood, the most famous warship in the British fleet, had vanished in front of thousands of stunned sailors. 1,418 men were aboard. Only 3 survived. All 3 were from the forward section of the ship. When the explosion tore the Hood in half, the stern disintegrated almost instantly, taking most of the crew with it. The survivors clung to floating wreckage for nearly 2 hours before being rescued by HMS Electra. Their bodies were burned. Their uniforms shredded. And their minds carried the trauma for the rest of their lives. The loss sent shockwaves through Britain. The Royal Navy had not lost a ship like this in over a generation. It wasn't just a defeat, it was a national humiliation. News spread quickly across Europe. In Germany, Bismarck's crew celebrated the kill. In Britain, the mood changed. Hood had been more than a ship. She was a symbol of British sea power, invincibility, and legacy. Now she was gone, and with her, the illusion that the Royal Navy was untouchable. Within hours, the Admiralty issued a new order. Sink the Bismarck. Every available ship in the Atlantic was redirected. Aircraft carriers, cruisers, destroyers, and battleships joined the hunt. The Royal Navy would not rest until Bismarck was on the ocean floor. Hood's destruction had changed the war. And left behind a wreck the world would not see again for 60 years. For decades, the final moments of HMS Hood remained shrouded in myth, theory, and silence. Survivors could only speak of the explosion. The sea had taken the rest. But in the year 2001, a British-led expedition, using advanced sonar and deep-sea submersibles, discovered the wreck, 9,000 feet below the surface of the Denmark Strait. When the first images came through, they were chilling. Hood's bow section was resting upright on the seafloor. Long after the shockwaves faded, the name Hood still carried weight. Not just in the Royal Navy, but across generations of sailors, families, and historians. For Britain, the loss was more than a military failure, it was personal. Schools taught her name. Memorials etched her into stone. Naval officers studied her downfall not out of curiosity, but out of duty. She became a symbol of sacrifice, and a lesson carved in steel. The survivors, all three of them, would go on to live long lives, but they never forgot the sound. That single moment when the sea opened, and history split apart. In later years, more expeditions would visit the wreck site. Not to recover. Not to rebuild. But to remember. Explorers placed memorials near the bow, left messages for the lost, and filmed the twisted metal slowly dissolving into the deep. No ship ever took her name again. The Royal Navy retired it, a silent sign of respect. And yet, in every sea cadet's manual, every naval museum, every black and white photograph of the war, HMS Hood still sails. She lives not in steel, but in memory. A caution. A monument. A voice from below. And now, you've heard that voice. You've walked her decks, witnessed her final battle, and seen what the ocean chose to keep. There are more wrecks like this one. More stories resting in darkness. And here, in the deep sea war zone, we bring them to the surface. One wreck at a time. Subscribe, and keep diving deeper with us. Because some stories weren't buried. They were sunk. HMS Hood was more than steel and firepower. She was the pride of a navy that once ruled the waves, a symbol of Britain's global reach, and her sudden destruction became a turning point in naval history. In just 8 minutes, the myth of British naval invincibility shattered. Her loss forced the Royal Navy to face the hard truth, that even the most iconic ships could be outgunned, outmaneuvered, and outclassed by modern design. After the war, Hood's memory lived on, not as a weapon, but as a warning. Naval strategy evolved. Battleships gave way to aircraft carriers. Deck armor was strengthened. Speed alone was no longer enough. But for many, Hood's legacy was far more personal. Thousands of families never recovered remains. There were no funerals. No final letters. Just a name carved into memorial stones, and a silence that stretched across generations. In schools, her story was told with pride and grief. In port towns, her name was spoken with reverence. And in the halls of the Royal Navy, she remained both a legend and a lesson. Today, the wreck of HMS Hood lies cold and silent in the deep. She no longer flies a flag. Her guns are mute. Her hull is broken. But the sea has not forgotten her. Every twisted beam, every shattered turret, is a chapter written in metal, a story of power, loss, and sacrifice. This is Deep Sea Warzone. Subscribe for more untold warship stories, deep sea wrecks, and the voices that echo beneath the waves. Because below the surface, history never sleeps.